But first, it's Friday. It's 4. It's Ann Coulter. Joins us now. Ann, I agree. Tulsi Gabbard would make a great senator. I think that you're right on the mark there.
Yes, I'm a little bent out of shape that some people feel like I don't have the power to elevate people to the Senate.
That's right. I exactly. If anyone's going to pick someone from the House and put them in the Senate, you should be the one.
Exactly.
I love that you have a sense of humor and it can be self-deprecating and just you bring out the worst in people and I love you for it.
At least I know how to get headlines.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, I would love to have you comment on the proceedings this week, the secret testimony that we apparently all know about only because Adam Schiff has told the New York Times what he wants us to know about it. But but I'm afraid that you're going to violate the cardinal rule in the media, which is to say anything critical of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander S. Vindman, who, he is
yes, well, as I'm sure you know, I wrote about Colonel Vindman, the greatest war hero since George Washington. Actually, no, look, he's a swell guy. That's not the point. Thank him for his service. That's not the point. The point is, it is absolute madness that we have someone born in Ukraine. Ukrainians, I love them. They are the most attractive, intelligent immigrants. I wish we could get more of them. But they do have, for good reason, an historic hatred of Russia. That little Ukrainian famine thing.
Yeah.
And to have this guy, someone born in Ukraine, listening in on the president and being the advisor on National Security Council, specifically on Ukraine policy vis-a-vis Russia.
Yeah.
It's madness. I mean, I generally am annoyed at something that I bet if we turned on MSNBC right now, we could see it. Immigrants who have been here, 6 minutes haranguing us and telling us how to run our country. I mean, just out of politeness, could you wait a few generations? We have the most successful, prosperous, free nation on earth. Observe.
Clearly,
see how it's done.
Clearly, you're speaking as Speaker of the House, Ilhan Omar here, because
and also that I can never remember her name. The Indian woman from the Pacific Northwest. You know her name?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, she's another one.
All right.
And also a lot of them just, commentators, explaining the grounds of impeachment to me from my TV screen. It's just a rude thing to do. It's part of the problem with this mass immigration from very, very different cultures where the host country, i.e. us, the most prosperous, free, wonderful country in the history of the world, have no interest in assimilating immigrants to our culture, have no interest in saying, hey, we have a terrific country. Welcome. This is how we do it. No, they're going to come and boss us around. But particularly in this case, I mean, there's a constitutional provision prohibiting someone born in another country from being president of the United States. Study question. Why do you think the framers did that?
Maybe.
Well, they talk about it quite a bit in the Federalist. We want to be absolutely sure there are no, and specifically what the framers were concerned about back then were all the internecine wars within Western Europe. We didn't want to be importing that to our glistening new country. No, we're oceans away. You keep your little ethnic hatreds where you are. This is the new country. So I mean that's annoying enough. And then you have this Colonel Vindman seeming to think that he was elected president. This whole quote whistleblowing is over a policy dispute. He wanted the foreign aid money to keep flowing to Ukraine to make sure there's a bipartisan consensus on aiding Ukraine. Well, okay, but that, as we keep hearing in the era of Trump, since they can't actually nail him on doing something technically wrong, it's the appearance of impropriety.
Right.
It's the appearance. I found out that until recently, you could not be in military intelligence with our Army if you had a parent born in a foreign country. That was dropped. I don't know when.
Wow.
I don't know under which president. I'd like to find out. So listeners out there, hey, I'm speaking in Washington. Somebody must know that. Call it into Larry.
But meanwhile, Ann, I look at this whole story and I share all of your outrage and frustration, and I'm dumbfounded about it. But also in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, where was the top Iranian NSC member listening in on Obama's conversations during the Iran nuclear deal, going to the media, blowing the whistle, saying, hey, there's a problem here? You know, where's the top Israel advisor listening in on his quid pro quos with Benjamin Netanyahu?
Right. I mean, that's the other point. I think, I don't know if Trump himself did this, but, you know, who cares? It's not a crime to make a bad argument. But I do think it was rather stupid for Trump defenders to leap out and say there was no quid pro quo, no quid pro quo. Of course, if there had been a quid pro quo, that would be a terrible, terrible thing. No, of course there's a quid. I mean, I hope there's a quid pro quo. And I think most Americans hope there's a quid pro quo. We hate foreign aid to begin with. I mean, that's something that in a referendum, I bet you'd get 70% support for. Why are we sending other countries billions of dollars? Doesn't really seem to be helping, since we have to take them all in here as refugees.
Right.
But if we're going to be sending these billions of dollars around the world, and you know, everyone has said this is a bipartisan consensus. The human rights groups, Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. No, we want to demand something in return. And the thing we're usually demanding is an end to corruption. I've noticed in all of the mainstream media in their discussion of what it was Trump wanted, this is a general rule of mine. When the specifics help them, you get specifics. When the specifics do not help them, you get generalities. This description of Trump asking for rehiring the prosecutor that Joe Biden forced to be fired, withholding foreign aid in order to get that prosecutor fired. He was investigating the company that employed Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. I'm sorry, that looks really, really bad. And yet you will not read that description in the New York Times, hear it on the media. It's all to interfere with our election.
Right. Right, to dig dirt on a political opponent, not a past vice president who headed up this policy with Ukraine. And we got to leave it there, sadly. Although I don't want to trigger you here, but it's Pramila Jayapal. That's the
It's what?
The Pramila Jayapal. That's the congresswoman from the state of Washington.
Yes, okay, I'm going to drive around. I'm going to have to memorize that.
Now you got it, Pramila Jayapal. Senator Ann Coulter, always good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here,
Thank
President.
you for always bringing a smile to my face.